Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending our second module in RealGUIDE software, planning fully edentulous cases. My name is Lee Austin. I'm a digital technology specialist. I'm also a dental technician, CDT with a biology degree, degree in removable prosthetics, and also a mastership in implant prosthetics. And I'm going to be going through the RealGUIDE software today and talk about how we plan for fully guided, completely edentulous patients, whether we're doing all-on-4 restorations or implant retained tissue supported overdentures, what have you. So with that, I'm going to jump into the software and show you how we start bringing patients into the program and set up our cases for planning the case here. So let me get my screen going. All right. And the first thing we want to do is, realize you have your cone beam DICOM file saved somewhere on your computer along with the STL file of the denture. Now, what we're going to be talking about today in planning a fully edentulous case requires what we call a dual scan protocol. You may or may not be familiar with that term, and I'll go into the details, but essentially on the broad picture of it, when you conduct a dual scan protocol, you are registering, you're taking 2 CT scans, right? One CT scan of the patient wearing the prosthesis and the other scan of just the prosthesis by itself. In both of those scans, you're going to have a commonality between those two through the use of fiduciary markers placed onto the prosthesis, and we'll talk about that, and I'll demonstrate how the software recognizes those markers. That's the critical thing, because those fiduciary markers allow us to relate the prosthesis by itself into the scan where the patient is being scanned with the prosthesis intraorally. And that gives us a good registration on how we can plan our implants using the existing prosthesis. Right? And as we go through, I'll comment on typical things with overdentures that we run into in planning, like relines and ill-fitting dentures, new versus old dentures, that type of thing. So I'll try not to get too technical with the dental technology side of it and stay focused on the planning, but it is related, so I will talk about that a little bit. So obviously we want to bring our patient to the scan, so we're going to create our patient, and I'm going to do that by left-clicking on the Add Patient icon at the top of the menu bar. That's going to open up a window, and we're just going to type in our patient's name. So this is going to be Module 2, and we'll call last name Full Ed. Okay, and I'm going to click OK. Right, and they're going to open up a new window that shows several options of where to go and import our files. Now, on this particular module, I have these case files saved in a folder, so I'm going to import my 3D exam project by clicking this window. That opens up a smaller window that allows me to either import files, folders, or our double scan image. So we're going to be importing 2 folders today. Again, the cone beam scan itself and the prosthesis scan. Both of these are saved in folders on my desktop. So I'm going to click the DICOM folder first to bring in my patient's in vivo scan. And let me go to my desktop. I'll grab this case. You can see here I have this labeled RealGUIDE Fully Edentulous Dual Scan Protocol. I'm going to open that folder up, and this folder contains my patient DICOM data. So I'm just going to highlight that folder, select it, and you'll see the software very quickly brings that in. I know it's been brought in correctly because I have 273 new files. If you see a really small number like 1 or 0, that tells you that that file is probably corrupt, did not import completely, and you might want to check your zip file or your upload, or perhaps even the scan data wasn't saved correctly. So we're just going to click OK there. And you'll notice that that CT opens up behind our window, which is fine. We're going to investigate that in just a few minutes, a little bit further. The next thing we're going to do is bring in our denture. So again, we're going to go right back to import our exam project. This time, because we're working with a dual scan protocol denture, we're going to click on double scan. And this basically tells the software, hey, look, I've got in our particular situation, we're going to do a lower prosthesis. So I've got a lower jaw that I'm going to be bringing into my scan. So I'm going to highlight that. Again, I'm going to open up my folder, go back to my desktop, go back to my folder. There are probably other shorter ways to do this. This is the way I have it saved. Highlight my lower prosthesis CT scan, select that, and the software will import that. Again, about 270 files, so I know it's good. And I'm going to highlight OK, and then I'm going to close that out. Now, what's nice is you can quickly grab this scroll bar and just scroll through and make sure that the files have loaded completely. And this is our patient scan. Remember, so we're going up from the inferior border of the mandible through and you can see those two little dots. Those are our fiduciary markers captured with the denture in place intraorally. And there's some others, all right? And then as we go up, now this case had a maxillary denture, which we're not going to register today, but you can see that as well, right? So we know that our patient scan is good. The lower scan here is our denture scan, and slide on over, and you can see the denture scan here. Now, I get asked a lot, you know, how do you position a denture, and does it matter? And it actually does. I tend to, and I've worked in offices where we've done these protocols, I tend to, for lower dentures, it's important to set the denture on a foam block or something that's radiolucent so that you're not picking up the plate of the scan machine that the denture is resting on, which could interfere with any registration. So, and I set lower dentures on the base, okay, of the denture. If it's a maxillary denture, I'll just set that teeth side down so it's upright. So just kind of like the patient's wearing a denture, just set the denture on those translucent pedestals, whether it's a foam block, what have you. Most machines have something that you can use for that. And then you can scan it. Also, it's important to position not only the patient but the denture correctly in your scan machine so you capture all of your prosthesis. And usually there are laser lines on the scan machine that will tell you the center, and generally the coronal plane is through the cuspid area of your prosthesis and your patient. Okay, so we have both of our scans imported correctly, and so I'm going to start by registering or telling the software, hey, I've got a denture in here that I want to register in my CT. So I'm going to open my denture first. Right. We'll get this to open up. Okay, and what we see here is and I'm left clicking and holding my left mouse button, just dragging around. You can see the fiduciary markers and a little bit of our denture, right? If you want to, and if you've been through our first series of modules talking about how to trim, I'll show you trimming in just a minute when we do the CT scan data, because we're going to trim out the maxilla. But we can trim, and we can also adjust the volumetric rendering of this, but really is not necessary. One thing I do want to point out is that you know you've imported your dual scan correctly in RealGUIDE software when you look over on your left menu bar where you have all of your functions, and you only have 3. You have the VOI, 3D settings, and the segmentation, which is going to be our workhorse in this mode right now. When you see these 3 tools over here in the left menu, then you know that you've imported your dual scan prosthesis correctly. So you know, there's really no need to adjust anything at this point. I'm just going to go right down to my segmentation, right, and I can adjust there. Now I get it's a warning, but it's actually the software telling me that it's detected 8 markers. Don't be alarmed if it doesn't detect all the markers in the prosthesis. It kind of is on a need-to-know basis. It may detect 3, 5, 7, what have you. Generally speaking, when you're doing these cases clinically, you don't need more than 4 or 5 markers around the prosthesis. You know, 8, 9, 10 is a little bit of overkill. So, and the other thing, and I like to tell doctors and staff when I'm training, is try to put the markers so they're not all in the same horizontal plane. And I developed the habit of just putting a marker right on the midline at the incisal edge. I like that for a couple of reasons. One, that it gives me a measurable tool when I'm designing cases, trying to figure out if there's enough intercoolable space for, say, a bar, a wrapped acrylic bar, or for zirconia type restoration. Knowing that vertical dimension of occlusion really helps out. You don't want to put markers all over the occlusal surfaces of the teeth, but generally 3 or 4 just scattered around, maybe some, on the ascending palate or out on the buccal ridge, the buccal slope of the mandibular prosthesis. So again, just a half a dozen is plenty. All right, so one thing we can do, or that we want to do with these segmentation markers, is we want to make sure they're nice, crisp, clean, well-defined. And we can do that through the VOI settings. If you go back up here, and we can set, let me go to 3D, I'm sorry. You can set these by working this little scroll bar right here, and you can see as I scroll, I'm bringing in the prosthesis. Well, I really don't want that right now. I just want to focus on my fiduciary markers. So that's one way to work the software, and I'm literally just left-clicking and dragging this with my mouse. Personally, I'm kind of lazy when I'm at the keyboard. I use my left index finger, hold down my control button, and my left button on my mouse, and I can do the same thing. I can move it sideways, up and down. It doesn't really matter, but all I want to do is just make sure these markers are clean. Right? So once I have those markers like that, let's go back to our segmentation mode. Right? I'm simply going to click segment. You can also use this slider, again, just kind of 3 ways, right? But I just want clean markers. So once I know they're nice and crisp, I'm just going to hit segment. And the software is going to recognize those and highlight them. Okay. We really don't need to concern ourselves with any editor tools at this point. So we're going to just bypass those tools. That's for cleaning up the prosthesis. I'll show you in just a moment if we can smooth things out or get rid of a tag or what have you. So once I'm happy with my markers, I'm just going to hit apply. Okay. Now you'll notice that on our segmentation toolbar, it opened up or brought in our prosthesis. So now we can use this slider bar, and it's very sensitive, so I'll caution, don't get carried away with it. You can see I can actually get, block out my prosthesis with all the scan data, or I can just slightly roll it back, and I just want to make sure I have a clean denture. By left-clicking and moving my mouse around, I can inspect the denture. You can see this denture looks like it had an impression, like a green mousse impression, which is a radiopaque material taken for the prosthesis. And this is, I'll show you this when we look at the radiographic information, but it is important when you're doing this protocol to have a well-fitting denture, because that will translate into a very accurately seating guide. And so for that reason, it's recommended that, if the denture doesn't fit well, you can either, the best practice is to do a hard reline to that denture base. Just, have the patient drop it off, send it to the lab, get a reline done, and then you can scan them when they come pick it up in the afternoon or the next day, what have you. You can, as in kind of, you look and see here, you can do a green mousse protocol, which is a radiopaque material. It's kind of a wash impression inside your denture. That will work, okay, either way, but again, we want a nice, good intaglio surface that's replicating our soft tissue contours in our scan prosthesis, or in this case, our denture. Okay. So once I've isolated that denture, I'm going to click segment, just like I did on the markers, right? And the software is going to highlight my denture. And now, basically what I've done is I've told the software, hey, I have a dual scan denture here with fiduciary markers on it. Just match them up, make sure that they're good to go, right? So once we've done these 2 steps, we're just going to hit apply, right? And then finish. That's all we have to do. Okay. So now you'll notice that we're back now to our patient file. And what I want to do now is simply go back to my patient CT scan when they were wearing this fiduciary marker denture. And I'm going to open this file up. It'll take just a moment. Okay. And as you can see, this patient was scanned with maxillary and mandibular overdentures or dentures with fiduciary markers. For this purpose, I'm not interested in the maxillary arch, so I'm going to trim this out of the software. It's not necessary to do it, but just cleans it up a little bit. And I'll just go through this very briefly for refresher, but we want to turn our trimming tool on, and we can just grab these little orbs and basically just drag all we're doing is we're telling the software, hey, I don't need this data. So let's just, it will keep the data, but it will just remove the data from our scan, from our project, basically. All right, and I tend to go to our little friend down here in the left-hand corner. I want to get rid of a little bit of the vertebrae that was captured. You can see in the bottom left corner. So I'll slide this forward, being careful, knowing that we don't want to go too far forward and get into too much of that retromolar pad because, as we know, tissue-supported prosthesis, we want that denture base to extend 2/3 up the retromolar pad, right, for good stability. Even though it's implant retained, we would still want good stability and, follow the principles of good design for your removable prosthesis. All right, so once we've kind of trimmed our mandible and isolated the area of interest, we're going to tell the software permanently keep that change that we made. It's going to give you a couple warnings. You can just ignore that. And now we have basically our project mandible that we can work on. You can see this mandible was cut off a little bit in the scan itself. Not worried about that. That's really out of the field of concern today. So when we're ready to plan, we just go to the next step. Now, you can, and you'll notice on this menu bar on the left-hand side, we have more than our original 3 like we did with our dual scan, right? We've got a full array of the software programs. So you can advance by clicking these, but it's best practice to advance by clicking the next step. And I am into the habit of also saving my steps as I go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this project, not worry about naming it right now. All right, and just hit save, and then I'm going to go to the next step. All right, now again, just going through very quickly, this is the volumetric rendering. I'm holding down my control key, my left mouse key, and I can kind of melt away bone. I can, capture all that scatter again. Not really too concerned. I'm just on a nice, good, clean mandible that I can visualize everything with. All right, so I'm happy with that. Again, next step. All right, now we want to bring in our dual scan denture and register that information to the CT scan itself. Very simple thing to do. And this software has artificial intelligence, which is a wonderful, just makes using it so much easier than other softwares out there. You simply highlight your markers first and tell the software that I want to match these up. So the software's already brought in basically our dual scan information that we just segmented out. And so we're just telling them, hey, match my markers on that denture to the markers you see here on the CT. So we're just going to hit matching, and it's going to tell us, it's going to ask us what do you want to match. Well, I'm matching my lower jaw markers. You can drop down, see this is all we have here, and we're just going to hit matching's already highlighted for us, so we're just going to hit OK. And it's going to say, it's going to ask us to just verify everything. See, it found 5 markers, even though we have probably 8 or so in here. Not a problem. And as you can see, it's brought those markers in, and there they are, nice and registered. I mean, they're spot on. All right. So that is telling, that's the software telling us, hey, I've got good registration between the fiduciary markers and my CT data. Let's keep going, right? And there's no problems. If this is off, you can go back and fit these manually or through assisted, but because the software's done it for us, I'm just going to apply this, right? And then notice what happens. Because we brought our double scan protocol in first, and we registered our denture, our dual scan denture first, all that information through the AI features of the software, it's already in our program. So when I click apply those markers, the software realizes that I've already matched those markers up to my denture, so I'm just going to bring the denture in for you. And now, there it is. It's already done for us. We don't have to worry about that. Now, we do want to check it, trust but verify, right? So there's 3 ways that we can, or 3 field of views that we want to make sure the denture is correct. And you can see on the bottom of our screen, we have 3 panes. We have an axial pane or slice of our CT data. We have a coronal and a sagittal. So I'm just going to scroll up through the axial, and I'm looking for the markers just to make sure, yep, they're on the denture base, right? And actually, I could flip this around, kind of show you what we're looking at, right? Let me make this a little larger. So as we come, looking for like mandibular markers, there's one over here on the right. Right, I'm a little higher now. There we go. There's the 4 going around the mandibular of our denture. Now they're covered up with the fresh material. There's a marker there. There's one there. And I can just see that they're in the right place. We can see it there. We can also scan it by, if you watch on the axial plane on the far left box on the bottom, as I scroll down and up with my mouse wheel, I'm basically taking my coronal plane, and I can go up to the interior of my denture, right? And there's those 2 markers, and we can just flip this around to show you those 2 in the front, right here and here. So we're seeing these markers here, and I'm just going to scroll with my mouse wheel and just watch my denture. So I'm looking for a couple of things. Because of the fiduciary markers, and they're well registered, I'm not too concerned about the all the gray I get around the denture, out in the vestibule. If this was a soft tissue model, I would want to see cotton rolls out there, which would give me, black cylinders, separate that cheek from the soft tissue, because then I'd be looking for the intaglio surface of my denture laying on top of my soft tissue, with a very intimate relationship between those 2 entities. So, and again, you can, same thing over here on the far right. Now let me reduce my box. It's in the way a little bit, and get my box out of the way. There we go. Over here, I can just scroll across the arch, again, picking up those markers. Just 3 ways to verify that my denture is registered correctly. Okay. So once I'm happy with my denture registration, I'm comfortable that it's accurately positioned in my CT data, I'm just going to apply that as well. And now we are ready to proceed. So we're going to go to the next step. And it's going to ask us to lay a panographic curve. Why is this important? Pan curve basically tells us that we have the correct valuation, that the patient's correctly positioned, and we are going to use this to basically orient the patient or verify that orientation of the patient in our scan. So obviously we're working on the mandibular arch, so I'm going to pick the mandibular choice. There's a little yellow orb here and over on the right side in these 2 planes, and you can scroll up and down and also position these, but I tend to put them at the midline and in the first molar position, right? And then you'll see the yellow line, the yellow horizontal line. That line we're going to use to just very slightly adjust, and you can watch the center view as I adjust that. We're trying to parallel, in this case, the ridge, horizontal ridge plane. If this was a partially edentulous patient, we'd want to try to kind of parallel that curve of SPE. And that basically tells us that we are looking at a nice section of our mandible that we can now plot our panographic curve. And to do that, I'm just literally going to left click. I can drag this back, capture all the mandible, right? And I'm just going to lay in about a half a dozen or so points along this mandible, staying in the middle. Right. And we go back here. Let's see here. Sometimes click on that little bar. You can see down below how we've now basically turned our 3D cone beam capture into a 2D panographic image. It's important to note that in the midline there's a little blue triangle. You want that to stay in the midline area. You don't want it over to the side. You can see what happens to the pan image when I move that. So try to keep the little blue triangle right in the middle. That just tells the software that you're centered bilaterally with your pan curve. And with our pan image, we can manipulate this image to be more conventional. Right now, it's on NPR saying we can go to a conventional pan image. We can also go to our slice thickness, and we can get 1 millimeter thick or 3, what have you. I tend to just default to the software. And we can use the slider bar to kind of widen things out. Now, if you watch the pan curve in the top center view, our axial view, so I'm sliding up, I'm actually taking my pan curve outside my mandible. So, since I'm kind of cutting it off. So I don't mess with this too much, just leave it in the center. It is adjustable, but for the most part, if you lay your points in the center of your ridge to begin with, you really don't have to manipulate these other images too much at all. So once you're happy with that, we're just going to click next step. And now we are going to track our nerve. Vitally important, right? So we can do this, we can handle our nerve a couple of ways or track it. I'm going to start on you can see we're starting on the right nerve. We are in a fully edentulous mandible, so we want to definitely track both nerves. So I can just grab the slider, or I can, I'm going to see if it'll slide for me. Clicking it will slide. Or easiest just to scroll in and out with my mouse wheel to find that inferior alveolar canal. And so I'm just going to click back here, and you'll notice that I get my cross-section view, and my dot isn't dead center in that canal. So by right-clicking, moving my mouse up, I can scroll in a little bit, zoom in. So I can hover over that dot, turn it green, get it right in the center of my canal, and then I can move forward. Right, so I'm just going to lay in a few dots, just track that canal as we come through our mandible. Let's come under here. This case, probably we're going to try to keep the implants anterior to the middle foramen, but I still want to map them out very carefully. See our curve here. If this is in the way, you can just kind of move it. All right, bring it back in. All right, and then here I'm just going to scroll forward, I'm kind of clicking on my arrows here, my cross sections. I'll put another dot right here. And scroll forward a little bit more, pick up that foramen where we exit. And then maybe one more click to get in the center. There we go. Just come outside the mandible, put a dot, and we're through mapping that right nerve. We do want to map the left nerve similarly. So again, I'm just using my wheel, looking at my pan image, finding that canal. Right, this one might be a little bit more interesting here. I don't know, over here. Yeah, okay, so nice big canal here. Here we go. It looks like there's some medullary space adjacent to this canal in a couple of spots. But important because I see a lot of cases where the doctors are planning for implants in the posterior mandible with locators. I call it kind of a quadrupod design, where we are putting implants back in the posterior. I'll drag that forward a little bit. Okay, and again, I'm going to use my slider just to come forward. I feel like that is out, right? So we want to get that back in the canal. All right. I do take my time mapping nerves. I think it's one of the more critical things we want to look for. We also want to look for any anterior loops to our nerve, and we can add that into our main canal just by going over, and once we do this, we can add a custom object right there and just keep mapping. I'm not going to do that today for brevity's sake, but there's our nerves. All right, we're happy. We hit next step, and now you can see we have our mandible with our nerves mapped, and where's our denture? Well, we have up here on the object list, we can turn our denture on, and there's our denture. Okay. You can also manage your objects like dentures, implants, or anchor pins, things like that, through this object list here. It's the same function, just gives you a different menu. So this little object list menu here is identical to everything you're going to see in your menus here. And you can move this box around if you like it in a different corner. All right. So we're on our nerve mapping. Right. So we go to the next step, and now we're at a tooth setup. Now, you know, theoretically, we have a denture here. We don't need to add teeth into the plan, right? We're going to use our denture as our surgery guide. But we want to tell the software where we're going to place our implants, right? So this is, again, will be determined by the clinician where they want to put, you know, the design of, you know, how you're designing this case, where they want to put the implants. For our purposes, I'm going to, there's two ways we can do the tooth wizard. We can just select the location, or we can actually physically add teeth. Again, because we have a denture, we don't need to add teeth, so I'm going to leave it on select. And I'm going to put, I'm just going to choose 4 implants. I'm going to put 21, and we'll call it, let's go to 23. We'll do 26 and 28. Right now, you know, we may end up in the 27, 22 areas. I might be a little closer towards the midline, but at least we told the software, these are where I'm planning to drop my implants. Right. So now I'm just going to go to the next step, and that's going to be planning for my implants, or choosing my implants to put in these locations. So you'll see why this helps, because when we choose our implants, it's going to tell us, okay, I'm in position around 22. It won't drop it arbitrarily back at 19 or 18, and you have to drag it all up around the arch. So once I have the implants kind of figured out, we go to the next step, and now I'm going to hit on, what did I say, 20, I think I chose 21, right? So I get a collision warning, not worried about that right now. So that opens up our implant library. So we click on the position we're going to place our implant. What happens is the software opens up its library. The first thing I want you to notice is that not every single implant is downloaded, and you don't want that. You really only want to download just those implant systems that you most frequently work with. And you can see here, everything's in the cloud. So if you see a system that doesn't have the cloud, like Astra, Vigo, BioHorizons, these are systems that I've already downloaded into the software. Right? So you just go down here, choose your implant. For our planning today, we're going to use Zimmer Biomet. I'm going to highlight that. And the system already brings that in. It'll give you all of the implants from that STL library from that manufacturer. So we're going to choose today for the Zimmer, the tapered screw vent, the MTX implant. I'll worry about the anatomy collision in just a minute, and I'll explain that. And then, you know, let's just say this is going to be a locator over denture. We'll keep it easy today. So, you know, do I want a 3/7 bake? With this bridge that I'm looking at here, I could probably get away with a 4/1 10. So I'm going to choose a 4.1 by 10. And now I'm just going to, what's really nice about this software is we've got a couple of images here in our planning library that we can work the implant. We can manipulate our implant without, we're truly not in our project, we're not to our project page. We're still kind of working in our library. We're able to kind of rough in these implants, right? So it's really nice. We just kind of manipulate things. I see them in a previous extraction socket, so I might want to pull it forward a little bit, right? Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to, we'll come back to the sleeves. I'll get back to that in just a little bit, but we're just going to hit apply. Right? And then there, and so this, now this is interesting. It picked the implant at 21 and put it over here at 28. All right, well, you know what? I'm not going to get upset over that. I'm just going to take it and move it over here to 21. Right? It's probably something I did in the software. That's okay. And let's upright it. Now I can work in my images. And this layout I'm using can be managed. I'll show you this. If you go up here on the toolbar at the top, there's different layouts you can choose, whatever works best for you. I tend to gravitate towards this quad view, or the 3D coronal, sagittal, axial planes. A lot of people like to have the Panorex view here. You can have all 4 in your pan with this layout. And I'll just demonstrate it by choosing that to show you what that looks like. Right? So it really is just up to the user preference on what layout you want to choose. Again, for me, I just personally like the one with the larger quadrants. I think it's because I've gotten away from the Panorex, the 2D image Panorexes. I tend to want to work in 3D and most of the time. All right, so that's a little far back, and if I use this little, I'm looking at the top right quadrant now. If I use a slider bar, I can kind of watch my nerve track. You see the foramen. We're still in front of foramen, but I want to bring it a little forward. I don't want to bring this in. And you know, again, with locators, as a technician, I'm always thinking about where is the attachment in my prosthesis and what is going to be the path of insertion of my restoration. Right. So I'm going to tilt this down, keep my implant in good bone, have good surrounding bone. I can probably raise it up a little bit. And just for demonstration, we'll do that. Try to keep that sleeve out of contact. Now, you'll notice this is turning red and green. What that's telling me, when you get an anatomy collision warning, 9 times out of 10, it's because the sleeve is hitting the soft tissue. If I were to bring this down, right, and you see it's contacting the integular surface of the denture, it's going to turn red. Right? If I don't like that move I made, you know what? I can just go right here to undo, and that will undo. It's like a breadcrumb trail. The more you click it, you're just going to go back in time with all your movements. So, so now you'll notice that I've got my implant over here. I've got a 41x10 Zimmer MTX. There's the product number, which is really nice. The software pulls out the reference number for us. In terms of the sleeve, I want to verify that my sleeve position is correct and that it's the right sleeve for this implant. So the software will bring in the manufacturer's recommended sleeve setting for you, right? And then we really don't want to mess with those and change those dimensions if we can help it. I just developed a habit of going in, verifying that I indeed have the right sleeve. So I will turn all the sleeves on that are in the software. I'll go down to Zimmer, and I know on a 4.1, the Zimmer system uses a sleeve labeled B. That's their large sleeve, and so I'm going to pick large. And also, I know I have a 4.1x10, so I'm looking for my 10 millimeter implant length, which is right here. I'm going to highlight that, and that's the default sleeve position for that implant diameter and length in the software. So I'm going to hit apply, and now we have that sleeve set for that particular implant. Okay, so I'm happy with 21. Let's go and click on 23. Now, interestingly, I want to show you this. If you click on 23 on the tooth chart, you're going to get an error warning saying select a different position. That's just that's just software. I don't really worry about it. I'm just going to come over and click on my axial plane in the 23 vicinity. Excuse me. Then I'm going to click on 23 on the chart, and that's going to bring in my implant. Just a little quirk. You'll learn to work around it very quickly. Again, we'll do a 4.1x10, and let's just verify our sleeve position. You can see how it goes into the default setting sleeve. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and grab my 10, get that sleeve out of contact. I'm pretty happy with that implant. And so we're just going to lay in some implants. Now, it's not nearly parallel, right? We'll show you some tricks on that. Let me get all these implants brought in. Let's go over here to 25. And what I like about this is I can kind of watch my arch form. I know I'm doing a 4-locator overdenture, so I want to leave space between the implants, right, on the midline with locators. Each locator housing is 5.5, so that'd be 5, and then a couple millimeters of material between. So I want at least 7 millimeters, preferably 8, center to center on my implant midlines to have room for the housing inside my dentures so that the housings aren't butted up against each other. Not going to be an issue here. So we're going to pick 25. And same thing. We'll just stay with our 4.1. We could probably do a smaller implant, but for continuity, and we're just demonstrating today, we'll choose that, set my sleeve, and then I'm going to go back over here to 28. I'm going to cross my arch, be this position. We'll call it 20, well, we said 28, right, when we were setting this up. So I'll show you how it's easy to change the implant nomenclature too. If you want to do that, you're not happy with 28, you want to label it 27. I'll show you some tools for that. Okay. All right, so we have our implants in our prosthesis. Actually, at this point, I'm comfortable just turning off the bone. I don't really need that. That's going to let me see my nerves. I can turn off all of these indicators, these labels, implant labels, and just go to info, hit that little button right there, and toggle that back on and off. I can grab these, move them where I want to, get them out of the way. I'm just going to turn them off. All right, there's my implants in my prosthesis, very nice. But, you know, they're not, some are parallel, it's like 21 is not. How far off is 21? Well, let's look. We can go right here to implant angles, highlight that, choose a master implant. We'll choose 25. We'll set that as our master. And we see that it looks like number 21 is 12.5 degrees off. For me, that's way too much for locator, especially something this basic of design. So now I've got to figure out, you know, what is the proper angulation for my path of insertion for this case? And can I get 21 angled correctly? Well, let's see. I'm just going to grab, let's see, let me grab 21. Click back over here. All right. And I'm going to work in my cross-sectional view. Now I can take this, again, the slider bar, turn this cross-sectionally, and in looking at my 3D, until I'm going to bring this a little bit to the buckle. All right, maybe here. Now I'm 4 degrees, 3.7 degrees. I also would probably like to move it a little bit, angle it a little bit towards the interior. So I'm just going to, let me get my slider. I can do it here. I'm kind of watching my 3D. Let's go more buckle. Okay, now that's probably a little extreme. I mean, I'm under, you know, what am I averaging here? About 1 degree between all these. Looks a little weird on my cross-sectional view. But how are we doing close to the nerve? I'm turning these off now. All right, again, I'm just taking my time, watching my positions, making sure. You can tell I'm right-handed. Everything's a little bit sloping to the right, right? So we can correct for that. There's also another great way to parallel the implants, and I can do that by just picking an implant, let's say 25, right? And if I want to make sure I'm on 25, I'm just going to turn my info back on. Yep, I'm on 25. If I right-click on the center toolbar on the implant, it opens up a menu box. I can come down here and go set the axis parallel to, and I can stick like 22, right? Because I was on 25. So we're going to make everything parallel to 22. So I'm going to go over here to 21. We're going to make it parallel to 22 as well. Okay. And then let's go over to 28. I can click on the implant, really in any field, doesn't matter. Parallel it to 22. All right. And now all my implants are parallel to one another. So I've got a common path of insertion. I should have 0 angles between all three. If I set my master, let's say we said 25. Here we are. All right, so I'm at 1.1. So it's off a little bit, probably me. All right, but certainly 1 degree on an implant locator or denture is not a concern. All right, so we've got our implants planned. We have our parallelism determined. We've got our path of insertion worked out. Right? And because this is a soft tissue guide, now I want to position my anchor pins. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go over here to my pin planning, and I'm going to tell the software, let me turn these angles off. Right? And I'm going to drop 3 anchor pins in. We found that 3 seems to be the magic number. So I'm going to choose anchor pin. Again, there's that arrow, so I'm going to put one in the center. We're going to call that position 1. All right. And now, just like we have an implant library, we've got a pin library. We're going to scroll down to the Zimmer anchor pins. It may not be in here. If it's not, then we're just going to choose the default 3D and meat anchor pin, and we're going to choose our sleeves. There may be a Zimmer sleeve here. Let's see, there we go, Z3D custom sleeve. And now we've got our pin and our sleeve. Obviously, I don't want the pin going through the entire mandible, so I'm going to grab my pin, and I'm going to activate that. I'm just going to grab it and pull it back out, and I'm going to get the pin up. Right, we're not even in the denture, so we got to get it up here. I'll rotate it through our, through our denture. I tend to click before I get my mouse in position. All right, so here's our pin coming in through our surgical guide. I try to engage the opposing cortical plate just a little bit. These pins are not threaded. They're generally push pins, right? What I really like about the software, let me show this to you. I'm gonna blow this up. Let me get another pin set because this will drive the point home. Let's do another pin over here at 4. Give me 1 second. I'm going to choose a pin here. We'll call it position 4. All right. We'll choose this pin. You can see it's really low. Highlight it. Let's get it up. All right. I'm just kind of working in one field here. I can bring it around. Now, I'm going to do 5 over here because I want to show you. Oh, yeah, keep doing that. That's all right. We'll go here, put another one here. We'll call this 5. Again, 3D pin. Let me grab my sleeve. I don't think I grabbed my sleeve on the other one. Here's my sleeve. I thought I had it. And we go custom 3D. There we go. Okay, so let me bring this sleeve up. I want to choose on this pin, sorry. Okay, this might be a little tighter. We're going to get it out. Got my closing, not worried about that. Get it up. But I want to show you what's really nice is I can see the patient's face when I'm setting these pins. Now I'm getting collision because my pin is probably in my safety zones around the implants. All right, so this pin actually might need to go in a different location, maybe behind the implant at 28. All right, but we'll leave it here for now. Oh, turned to green. All right, so I'm going to make their 3D larger. And in the top of your 3D imaging window, you have a toolbar, and you just hover over these. It tells you what they are, but this little circle here, this is soft tissue. If I turn that on, and then I hold down my control key and I adjust my volumetric rendering, left click on my left mouse and hold that down and scroll back, I can peel away that soft tissue, and I'm able to see where these pins are in relationship to the corners of the mouth. This is a great tool when you're planning your anchor pins so that they're not out in the cheek, so they're not in the way of the retractors, lip retractors or anything like that. So I use this tool all the time when I'm demonstrating and planning cases, just to show that our pins are within the oral cavity, the oral opening that we're going to be working in, that field that we're working in. I can turn that off just by clicking it again, or I can just turn the whole thing off by that hex. Okay. Now, can I improve on these pin positions? Absolutely. Probably take number 1 here. We'll go back in our axial views. Tends to work on this a little better, and we want to straighten that up. So I'm just going to grab it. Just kind of bring it a little bit more towards my midline. I like to have the pins kind of in the same plane. Not bad, right? When you're planning pins, again, try to keep them out of the vestibule, out of that unattached mucosa. It's pretty painful. You don't want to put them where the frenum is, right? This is over the frenum. I've got it high enough, I feel like. There may not be a frenum attachment. If there is, no worries. We can just slide it over. Let's make this larger. See if I've got room to slide this in a particular fashion. So yeah, I could probably bring it over. Click on it. Probably bring it over. I think I'm going to keep going this direction and maybe just can a little bit this way. Okay. All right. So now that we have our plan, everything looks good. We're just going to go up here and save it. All right. So I'm going to hit save, and I'm just going to, I can label this final plan. We'll call mod ed plan. Okay. And just hit OK. Right. And that will allow us, that tells the software they've saved the plan. We're good to go. Now, if we want to export this plan, we're going to go down to our reports export field, and we can generate implant reports. We can generate a drill report if the drill armamentarium is loaded into the software. And we do have a list of systems available for labs to let you know if you want to generate a drill report for your clinicians or whoever you're sending this to. You can get that report. It's just nice to have handy. The implant report you can generate, that will, I can run through that real quick. I'll just show you just, birthday, clinician's name, planning. Here's where you can set defaults to, like, are you going to immediately load these implants? No. On this one, what type of guide are we planning? This is going to be a soft tissue supported guide. We do have fixation pins, so we'll choose that. And what's nice about this report is you get a bone density map showing the Hounsfield reading, the D1 through D4 scale of bone density around the implant. That's a nice feature. You can set that inside your implant osteotomy or around the implant volume, either one. Are we doing any bone grafts? You can click yes or no. What's the surgical approach going to be? We're going to do flapless. In most cases, these overdentures with guides like this, yeah, we're going to do a tissue punch or a small envelope flap. We're not going to denute the mandible. And this is obviously for the maxilla sinus grafts, no. And then on the implant details, if we just click these implants, the system will load up our implants. We can put any notes we want to down here. Everybody's going to add on implants. And then finally, just hit OK. You can put your own logo on the report if you want, just by clicking that logo tab. It'll generate an implant report. I'll show you this real quick. We're about to wrap up, but I'll just put mod ed, or let's put AA mod ed. All right, I'll save that, and I want to show you what that report looks like. Go back to my desktop, open that up. I've got it opening up too. So this is what the implant report will look like. Let me drag this in. Hang on. There we go. All right, and you see we have our denture guide. Now this will be a surgery guide, which we'll cover in our next module. As I scroll down, here's all of our implant locations, the implant manufacturer, model number, size, and the sleeve configurations. All right, and there's pictures of every implant with all their numerations, right, for each one individually. This is that bar graph of the Hounsfield readings of our bone density. Very nice features to have. You can put any notes. This would be typed in that notes section I just showed you when you're choosing your implant or your planning session tab. Okay, so there's your report. All right, so I want to open it up to some questions now. I hope I gave you a thorough explanation of how to plan, how to bring in our dual scan prosthesis, that dual scan protocol, how to plan the implants, plan for our anchor pins, and then save and export this for guide production. It's really good software. It's very intuitive to use. Kind of, it's just step by step. And if you get lost or make a mistake, you can always go back. If you want more training, you can download these cases, this exact case. You can download it from the RealGUIDE website. That's www.realguide.com. You just click on download the software, and in that, once you click on that download button, a new page will open up, and you can scroll down that page and you'll see these cases that are available for download. There are tutorial videos. There's all kinds of videos of the dual scan protocol, how to merge that data, partial edentulous cases, how to create your patient, how to work all the tools within the software. It's such a great resource on the website that you can use. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions. So if we're all good, I'm going to end our program a little bit early today, a couple minutes early. If you have any questions or you want technical support, you can reach out to us, support at RealGUIDE.com, or you can call RealGUIDE at 1-866-828-5300. And again, all of those contacts are on the web page as well. So thank you so much for your attendance today. I hope you have a blessed afternoon and a wonderful week ahead. Thank you again. Bye-bye.